If you grew up during the time of video game rentals, chances are you played one of the many LJN games. LJN was a video game publisher known for making games based on very popular movies, Back to the Future, Friday the 13th, Jaws, just to name a few. Over time, LJN became synonymous with bad games, and let's face it, most of them were. The games that were based off movies had very little to do with the movies they share a name with. But today we're going to try and be a little more positive by looking at some of the games that weren't all that bad. This is my top 5 LJN games for the NES. Number 5 on my list, Friday the 13th. You'd be forgiven if you never figured out what you're supposed to do in this game. I owned this one as a kid, and most of the time I would just wander around aimlessly until Jason would appear and eventually kill me. In short though, you're trying to save the kids at the camp before Jason kills them and the other counselors. In the game, you control one of 6 counselors running around various locations at Camp Crystal Lake in search of different objects to help you complete your goal. Finding these objects is about as obtuse as it gets. You don't even use a torch to light fireplaces, you use a lighter. To get the flashlight, make sure you light all the fireplaces in the cabins, but not all cabins have fireplaces. You will occasionally come across notes that provide clues about a location or object, and eventually you'll have to take on Jason himself. He's not easy, and if you don't have the right weapon, he's basically unbeatable. I don't think it was until adult me actually took the time to learn how to play the game that I ended up enjoying it. It's still not the greatest game, but for an NES game based off of a movie, and a horror movie at that, it's not that bad. Number 4 on my list is also the first game released by LJN, Gotcha the Sport. This game uses the light gun and a controller at the same time in what basically amounts to as a paintball / capture the flag game. The player goes through each level shooting at the enemies in an attempt to capture the enemy flag, which you do of course by shooting it. The controller in this game is just used to move the screen left or right. You get additional ammo by shooting the ammo boxes laying around or that are dropped from enemy players. There are only 3 levels in Gotcha, which are grouped into rounds, and each round repeats seemingly forever while the enemy reaction time gets better and better in each round. As far as LJN games go, and games that make use of the light gun, I feel like this is one of the better ones that I still find myself playing from time to time. Number 3 on my list, Jaws. Again, this is one where you'd be forgiven if you didn't really know what to do. This is also one that once adult me took the time to learn the game, I actually found it to be fun. In fact, I beat it for the first time ever on one of my live streams.
Smile, you son of a bitch.
In Jaws, which is actually based off of the 4th movie in the series, you sail around collecting seashells which you can use to purchase equipment. You can get a receiver which tracks Jaws' location by beeping. The faster the beeping, the closer Jaws is to your boat. You can also increase your attack power, which will help you in the swimming portions of the game when Jaws is around. Jaws' power bar is completely lowered. You'll go into a sort of first-person view of the boat, where the goal is to use the strobes to force Jaws to stick his head out of the water. The timing here is critical as you have to time your attack, which is basically just ramming the boat into Jaws as he sticks his head out of the water. You have 3 strobes and 3 chances to skewer the shark. If you fail to do so, you go back to the overhead view and you have to try and lower Jaws' power bar again. Once you beat Jaws, you get a very nice sunset view with the plane flying off in the distance. Number 2 on my list, The Karate Kid. I actually really loved this game when I was a kid, and I think that's because it wasn't very hard. Though the game is called The Karate Kid, it's actually based off of the 2nd movie, and like the 2nd movie, the game starts off at the All Valley tournament. From there, the game moves to Okinawa, where you'll go through many of the same moments from the movie, like practicing the drum technique at the cannery or breaking ice blocks. There are only 4 levels to the game, and each level ends with a fight against Chosen, the antagonist of the second movie. In the final stage, Daniel must make his way to the castle in a final confrontation with Chosen. Here though, Kumiko is laying on the ground. Anytime Chosen comes into contact with her, she moves closer to the edge. If she falls off or Daniel loses all of his health, you lose a life. The easiest way to keep her from falling off is to move as far left as you can and just keep punching and kicking Chosen until he's defeated. Yeah, I really love this game, and it isn't too difficult. If you never got around to playing, I highly recommend giving it some of your time. And finally, the number 1 game in my top 5 LJN games, Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Now, I will admit, the reason this is my number 1 is because once adult me figured out what you're supposed to do, I found it to be so much fun. And also because I beat the game for the first time ever on stream in front of about 50 viewers.
Yeah! Woo!
So that's something that will always stick with me. The game loosely follows the events of the movie. In it, you play as private investigator Eddie Valiant, who is trying to find the 4 pieces of Marvin Acme's will, with Roger Rabbit in tow, of course. The game features a top-down view in an almost proto-open world setting. You walk or drive, once you find Benny the cab, around a very condensed version of LA, the outskirts, and even Toontown itself. You can go into many of the buildings to search for clues. The game switches to a side-scrolling view in these scenes. You can go into rooms searching for desks, chairs, tables, and even mouse holes. And you're doing all of this to collect seemingly random objects along the way, like bricks, exploding cigars, and fish bones. Another location you can visit from the movie is the Ink and Paint Club, the nightclub where Jessica Rabbit performs. Here she will offer hints on how to find pieces of the will. If you find a piece of the will, you can return here and she will give you a hint for the next piece. If you look under one of the tables, you can also find a phone number that was once used as a hotline for the game. If you called it, Jessica Rabbit would provide additional gameplay hints and tips. Over the years though, the phone number has been reassigned many times, including a sex hotline. Unfortunately, it seems the original recording for the game's hotline has been lost, as I couldn't find it anywhere. Eventually though, you'll make your way to the Acme warehouse, where you'll confront Judge Doom and play, in my opinion, one of the hardest boss fights ever. There are 2 phases to this fight. In the first phase, your goal is to move the indicator that's inside the strength bar to the center. This fight is pretty tedious. You can use some objects to help inflict damage, like the exploding cigars or the bombs, but they do very little damage. Eventually, you'll just have to punch the crap out of Doom over and over again, all while avoiding his punches with his glue hand and his eye daggers, which you'll know he's about to throw because he turns into this weird monster form, which of course this is supposed to be like that moment in the movie when Doom reveals who he really is.
Remember me, Eddie? When I killed your brother, I talked. Yes!
When I played this on stream, it took me several hours just on this fight alone. There's a trick that involves punching him over and over into the wall on the left-hand side, and if you can get yourself into a good rhythm, you can just sit there and punch him until he falls to the ground. But it's not easy learning that rhythm. At least it wasn't for me. The second phase of this fight is simply walking around to the top of the truck, grabbing the dip cannon and shooting it at Doom. Once you get it though and walk back down, you have about 2 seconds to fire before Doom wakes up and charges at you.
Yeah!
And if he reaches you, it's instant death. The game tricks you here though, because in the first phase, you have to repeatedly tap the button to punch Doom. In the second phase, you just have to hold the button to fire the dip cannon. Many of my attempts were lost because I just simply didn't know that. I was trying to tap the button to shoot the dip cannon like I was doing in the first phase.
Hold down the button. Hold down the button. For the love of God, hold down the button.
Once Doom is out of the way, Roger and Jessica lower to the ground, Toontown is saved, and the game is won. So that's it. That's my top 5 LJN games. I'm sure your list is different, so let me know in the comments what you think are some of the better LJN games for the NES. Also, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you're not already, so you don't miss any of my videos. And if you want to hang out with me when I'm live, I live stream every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday right here on YouTube, as well as Twitch and TikTok. So thanks so much for watching, everybody. I'll catch you on the next video.